Right guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to the Long Dark. I spent the night in the cabin that I found at the end of the previous episode. It's now early morning. I'm checking out all the contents here before I head on out. As you saw, I found a rather nice jacket there. Clothes are all important in the Long Dark. They're probably the most important item that you're ever going to come across. Now food and items like that, water, can always be found, they can always be made. Clothes are a little bit more difficult. They do take some skills to make, and eventually, sooner or later, it's highly likely that you're going to run out of them. And that is simply down to the wear and tear mechanics on all wearable items. Outside then, I come up from the left to the cabin. There's a slope there just off the side of the screen you can't see now, and in front of me the pathway curves around and goes on up. You can see some footprints there because I came up to here a moment ago and decided to head on back to drop off some items. I was overburdened, didn't want to go up here with carrying too much, and you never know what I might find along this way. Thing is, it turns out that the coastal area of the Long Dark seems to be quite sparse. It's full of buildings to be sure, it's full of plenty of items to collect, but there's long stretches of pathways with nothing much along them. Now keep in mind that this area is set as an intermediate player, or I'd even go as far as to say it's probably a beginner's player. Then again, I am on the easy difficulty setting, so that probably does make a difference all in all. But I'm edging quite rapidly towards restarting again at a higher difficulty setting. Makes things a bit more challenging, keeps things a bit more easy. Although I do like to explore all these wonderful areas. A rope dangling down off the edge of a cliff puts me in the mind of Firewatch. Reminds me of that rather wonderful game that I may play at some point on this channel. Now I was extremely tempted to climb that rope right there, but I thought at the end of the day I'd rather know my surroundings a little bit more before I start going out of bounds to areas that I don't know what they're all about. Like I say then, plenty of buildings, plenty of cabins all around here, and a whole stock of resources. In fact, at the moment at least, I seem to have more resources than I could ever possibly want, and that leaves me to do some of the rather silly things of leaving behind some items. There's a flare there on the table, there's a bit of wood down there on the floor. All of these I decide to leave behind. After all, they're not too far out of reach, and I know where to come and get them if I need them. And I already have plenty of flares, and I already have a whole stash of wood, some of which I left back in the cabin at the start of this video. Now so far I've only played the game in two zones. This area here, the coastal highway, and the other zone, Mystery Lake. I found Mystery Lake to be a little bit more interesting, to be honest. It has some wonderful forest areas there, and of course that wonderful lake. Then again, most of this area remains completely unexplored to me, so there's no doubt a few surprises around the corner. If you've got any favourite areas for this game, do let me know in the video comments. I'd love to hear what you like about this game and some of your favourite areas, and I'll be sure to go and check them out. So these long areas there where you can just keep walking and come across nothing, I suspect these can be extremely deadly if a storm hits. You can go a long stretch without finding any form of shelter, and I suspect that could ultimately be a problem. But after walking a long way along the highway itself, I eventually come to this fishing camp here, and this turned out to be a very nice location, full of a lot of resources and very close to a fishing hut just over there. And that's where I decided to start doing my first food collection. Got myself into the hut and I decided to light the fire here. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I can burn, and the fire will continue to burn all the time I put in some resources. Some of the fire logs here, although they don't burn hot, they do burn for a very long time, so it's quite possible to have a fire going for multiple hours. And this is essential when you're fishing, because you basically have to fish for periods of 1 hour at a time. The little fishing hole here had already frozen over again after me clearing it out just once, and you can see my stats are starting to get a little bit low, so I don't want to spend too long fishing. Just 2 hours for the first time. And I'd already forgotten just how long the log fire was burning for there, but 3 hours is plenty of time. So a nice opportunity to get plenty of food, which can be cooked in the fire there. Unfortunately, silly for me, I didn't take the opportunity to cook the fish while I had them to hand. And you can see the old girl is getting a bit tired here. So once the sun was starting to set, I decided to head back to one of those cabins in the fishing camp to get a bit of sleep and just look at the night sky there. Absolutely lovely. The kind of star field that I don't get at all around where I live, but I do sometimes travel a long way to go and find places that look a little bit similar to that. Now, although I'd put the game on an easy difficulty setting, that wasn't able to prevent me from making some rather stupid mistakes. Heading back to the cabin, I decided there to clear out some of my inventory, putting some items on the floor, double clicking to drop the items as it were. But I made a stupid mistake of consuming some raw fish, giving myself a very bad case of food poisoning. Something I'll have to resolve in the next episode. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.
How could they say I was broken? How could they say you made me come undone? Now I know that it's okay. Unlike my friends, you are nothing like them.